My name is Reverend Ronald Tuff. I'm serving as the second vice chair, and our workshop is, and we want to thank you all for staying. Yeah. And our workshop is Barriers to Green Jobs. And they listed me as the moderator, but I'm not. James Thompson is the moderator, and I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's going to explain what green jobs are. Green jobs are, we're moving into a green economy, offshore wind, electric vehicles, and solar. And there's going to be job opportunities. You've heard the governor, you heard the president talk about billions of dollars. Well, the other title I wanted to title this workshop is Green Jobs for Who? So keep in mind that these green jobs, and there's Kim Gaddy, come on up, they're going to explain what I'm trying to say. So at this time, I'm going to ask Brother Thompson, who is my Omega Psi Phi brother, to come on up.
Thank you, Brother Tuff. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? We're going to go ahead and get started. I think some folks are still getting squared away and seated, but hi, Kim. My name is James Thompson. I'm the campaigns director for the New Jersey League of Conservation Voters. We're a statewide environmental organization that does a lot of work around preserving open space, clean water, and also clean air. I'm here with a group of folks that really talk about and concentrate on green jobs and the barriers to green jobs, in particular to BIPOC communities of people of color. So I'm here with a group of panelists. I'm really glad to be up here with everybody here. We have Pastor Randy Lassiter from Calvary Baptist Church out of Patterson, Al Tariq, organizer with New Jersey Together, All Together. Jeff Johnson, the Mayor Jeff Johnson, former mayor of Patterson, who's actually taken the podium off the stage. We have Sharonda Allen, Executive Director of Operation Grow, and Kim Gaddy is the National Environmental Justice Director for Clean Water Action. So before we get started, I just kind of wanted to just kind of go a little bit briefly about what's happening, what's been happening particularly over the past several years. All of you know that New Jersey itself is one of the states where we have an opportunity to be very, very aggressive and very optimistic in our approach to transitioning to 100% clean energy. The goal has been set out by the governor's administration by doing all of this by 2035, which means there's a lot of very, very aggressive and ambitious steps that we need to take in order to do that, primarily because of the effects of climate change. Going from a place of how we're powering our homes and how we're powering our businesses, even the point where we're driving our cars and vehicles, ranging from driving combustion vehicles, gas-powered vehicles to electric vehicles, as well as how we're powering our homes through solar, wind, other forms of clean energy that would ultimately get us to the point where we're actually at 100% clean energy. So that would obviously mean that like offshore wind, which is a growing industry, billions of dollars that's being injected into our state economy, not only down at the shore, but also statewide. Obviously there's economic development opportunities for small businesses, businesses within a supply chain to manufacture the turbines, and also the construction jobs that are going to be offshore, building the turbines, as well as the jobs that are going to be onshore as well. So there's an entire new industry that's being built and designed in reference to that around the state, as well as solar panels and solar energy as well. There are projects all over the state by solar developers that are either currently in the process of being built or will be built. Those are, obviously job opportunities as well, and making sure that residents, community members, and not only, different different areas around the state, but particularly in communities of color. And the lights just go out? What's going on?
Trying to make it light up.
Okay. Add more light. Okay, great. So anyway, so I'm going on a little bit too hard. And then the last sector I think is also as well is very important is electric vehicles. As we transition towards, more electric vehicles on the road in New Jersey, we're going to have to make sure that the charging infrastructure is sufficient, right? And so whether that's charging stations and commercial businesses or malls or other places, also charging stations at homes and also multifamily dwellings as well. So there's a lot of different opportunities for communities of color to be able to take advantage of the clean energy transition. This is vitally important, but one of the more important things that we really wanted to highlight and talk about is one, what are the barriers to clean energy, the barriers to clean energy jobs for brown and black communities, but more importantly, how do we get over those barriers as well? So I kind of want to just pose that question initially to the folks who are here, and then we can kind of take it from there. Who would like to start?
You gonna start that way? Or
Yeah.
So, hi, good afternoon. My name is Jeff Jones. I'm here because my pastor said I better come, and my good friend, Mr. Tuff, said it's important that we help clarify and share with the world that we are behind the 8 ball as it relates to the opportunities. So, former mayor of the city of Paterson, former IBMer, former Marine, former all that good stuff, and yet the struggle of someone who was always former remained the same. Do I need to say that again? Amen. That the struggles of someone who is a former some of everything that our foreparents had tried to put us all in position for so we can advance the collective, we're still waiting for the opportunity. And now we're at the precipice of where the next generation of opportunity, not just the young people who were here, but this industry called EV, solar. That industry is in fact a new diamond. It's not zirconia, it's a new diamond. But if you take a look at who's there, you'll find that none of us have a hand on that diamond.
That's right.
That is what we're here to discuss when we talk about the barriers. And I think it was prophetic that the previous speaker, the CEO, Vice President of Rutgers University, had the opportunity to engage the young people while they were still here. And I think that message about knowing the history was paramount. I don't think they need to hear what we need to talk about right now. Because we need to talk about the fact that we still shucking and jiving as a collective, and we're not paying attention to what's real, and we're not holding folks' feet to the proverbial fire so we can get the opportunities that we keep saying we want to see change. I say that, now you know why I'm no longer mayor, because I tell it like it is, and I don't worry about it. But I also need to say this. We heard this morning, if you turn on any news station, I ain't talking about the politics of the general framework. I'm talking about the 3 big unions. Talk about fossil fuel folks look like you and me, who put 20, 30 years in. And you remember when you got a job, whatever job it was, you were expecting that if you just stuck it out, retirement would be there. If you think that is still an option for anybody starting today and having 20 years, raise your hand. So the room remains silent. And that's the truth. So unless we venture into a new opportunity, and that is what EV, solar, and the new opportunities are, get on the ground floor and hold folks accountable and build ourselves up, we will be lost in the sauce. So that's what I wanted to say to start off. And I hope, I know you from somewhere. Yes, I do. Okay, I know, I recognize. I'm sorry. That's me.
We're using this, okay. Kim Gaddy, National New Jersey Environmental Justice Director for Clean Water Action and founder of the Southward Environmental Alliance. So I'm going to bring the perspective of the grassroots, frontline, marginalized communities. when you talk about barriers, you have to talk about the ability to have exploratory programs for our youth to first understand what it takes to be a solar installer. Secondly, when we talk about wind, we have to understand that that is something that's going to happen 10 to 15 plus years. So we should be talking and introducing all those students who just left to what the careers are in wind power. And then when you think about our realities, we live in communities that are polluted and we have the solutions, but we don't have a seat at the table. So everybody is making decisions for us. And as an environmental justice advocate, we know that nothing about us without us is for us. And so it starts from that perspective, and we have to look through that lens of reality. And then when we look at the companies, if you just take PSE&G for an example, there's barriers to employment even in that business. And then if you look at where the jobs are going to be located and the lack of transportation to take our students and residents to these places, that's another barrier. The Clean Water Action had a program with NJIT where we trained 10 students to be solar installers. And this was probably 10 plus years ago, 15. We had problems with the union, IBW, because when these young kids, some with a GED, got on the roof, what union you with? Why are you up here? So we had to begin to now start some honest conversations with the unions to say, stop it. They belong in this space as well. And let's be able to negotiate what those terms should look like. And so the barriers is lack of inclusion, right? Lack of understanding what the jobs really are, lack of transparency and information being shared with the communities that's most impacted and that should have access to the jobs. And then I want to say lastly, transportation. Reverend Tuff says it all the time. Transportation, transportation, transportation are just some of the barriers, and I'll stop there.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Al Tariq Witcher, and I'm an organizer with New Jersey Together. But more importantly, I'm here as a member of the Returning Citizen Support Group. For those of you who may not know, a returning citizen is a person who was convicted of a crime, paid their debt to society, and are now home and trying to reacclimate into society. One of the barriers I like to highlight is persons that have been previously convicted. Like I said, you pay your debt to society, you come home, you should be able to get any job you want and successfully reintegrate into society if you have the willingness to do so. Myself, I served over 20 years in prison. I came home 12 years ago, graduated from Essex County College with an associate's degree in paralegal studies, graduated from Rutgers, got my bachelor's in criminal justice. I'm now a community organizer. I'm doing a project with Rutgers right now, as working with Vice Chancellor Shante Palmer, and establishing a reopen project. I mean, like, I've made some significant strides. I'm a real estate investor. I have properties. I mentor children. I do a little bit of everything, all positive. I've been home 13 years now, and I've done positive. But if I wanted to get into certain unions, certain industries, I would be precluded from doing so by virtue of my criminal background. So I think that we need to really look at that barrier where men and women who have, like I said, paid it to society and are good workers, good people, many of our family members, we know people that have been incarcerated, whether or not they're blood relatives or just neighbors or fellow members of the church or community. We need to remove those barriers and make sure that people come home that want to work are able to secure these jobs and get into these unions. Thank you.
Can I just say one? So unless you are re-educated, recertified, or unionized, you will not qualify for a job in the new green economy. And the new green economy consists of offshore wind, electric vehicles, and solar installation. So we have to encourage our educational institutions to change their curriculums, because let me just say, I had just got one short story. I met with 30 black electricians, 30 years of experience, and not one of them had a license or was admitted into the union. Why? Because in order to qualify, you need 2,600 hours worth of experience. You also had to go to school for 2 years. You also needed geometry and trigonometry, and then you had to take a test. So we met with the union, the IPEW or whatever, and I asked them, who do you know, black, had the time to raise a family and do all of that? And the answer was, well, my son, they're in the unions, but when it comes to us, because of the school system and because of where we come from, we're not admitted into the unions, and some of the tests that they have that we cannot qualify to take some of those tests. And they said, well, we have an apprentice program. Yeah, they have an apprentice program, but after that apprentice program is over, you are out. And so your apprentice program might last a year or might last 6 months. So one of the purposes of this workshop is to realize some of the barriers, and also with the theory of this whole convention is that we have to work together to make it happen so we can qualify for those green jobs. And once again, I say green jobs for who?
Thank you, Reverend Tuff. So just real quickly before we continue, I just kind of wanted to highlight several things that Al Tariq and also Kim had mentioned a little bit ago. So I think that one of the things that kind of resonated and stuck with me, Kim, was the fact that, you'd mentioned before, making sure that folks had information and were educated in the know, right? So knowledge is pretty much everything. The other point that I thought was also important as well was, having, curriculums or educations that are in place, I guess for high school students or even middle school or what have you, right? But even within, we also have adults that also need to be, re-educated as well about, what training and job opportunities are available, making sure that they're getting to pre-apprenticeship programs, making sure that they're getting to pre-certification programs. And Al Tariq, I think the other thing that I also thought was vitally important as well was like what opportunities are there for ex-offenders that are focused on working and working viable jobs. So I want to touch on Sharonda. Like I think that the work that you're doing is pretty much centered around creating curriculums and opportunities for folks that in brown and black communities. What do you see moving forward, and how do you think those types of curriculums and opportunities should be designed for communities of color?
So let me first introduce myself. My name is Sharonda Allen, MPA, founder and executive director of Operation Grow, Inc. I'm also the chapter co-chair for the Greater New Jersey Gateway Climate Reality Project, EJ co-chair for Tri-County Sustainability, as well as a bunch of other organizations that I belong to and lots of things that I do. I'm similar to Al Tariq. I know some of you saw me cackling with Al Tariq because we are kindred spirits. We're Leos who are like octopuses with our arms and hands and so many things because we know what needs to be done. And sometimes if we don't do it, it won't get done. And one thing I can say about the barriers to green jobs as an educator, as a curriculum writer, we can't always depend on the schools to give our young people what they need, what they desire, what is required. You know, we have other communities that will bring their young people on Saturday mornings and they teach them. And I always say to people, we need a quote unquote Negro school, you know, because they have Hebrew school and the Indian, you know, Bengali people, they take their young people and they teach them about their culture. But what I'm able to do with Operation Grow is I participate in working with other organizations such as SCAP in Somerset to teach and train the young people about these green jobs. I have access to curriculum because of my partnerships with other organizations that are not even in New Jersey, such as Dimension Renewable Energy. I have access to the offshore wind, the solar, and the EVs. And I'm able to teach the young people early on because it's difficult to get a 30-something-year-old adult into this industry. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, we can't, but we got to get it from all angles. I am bringing the young people into the understanding of these green jobs, this brand new industry that if we don't put them in it now, we're going to continue to be left behind. We have a 10-year window of opening the offshore wind industry to our young people. I was down at, you know, the port in Paulsboro back in July, end of July, early October, August rather, with Kidwind. And we were looking at where they bring in those big pilings from Germany. And we have to, of course, down there, they don't even have the right bus service. That's another story. We've been talking about it. And I was at an Easy Ride event a few weeks ago, and I said, you're complaining about the coach and the 24 and the 44 and the 31. Why doesn't New Jersey just start new bus lines? Duh, guess what I saw in my email? My suggestion started a new bus line. Traffic studies, economic studies, knowing that they could create bus services. New Jersey Transit is all of New Jersey. In Camden County, in those areas, in those communities where they don't have vehicles, where there is no accessibility to these jobs and to the training for these jobs. It is not rocket science. When we talk about the fact that the young people that I'm working with are going to get this understanding now, they'll get that trigonometry. They'll get the geometry. They'll understand, because I do human, economic, social, and environmental sustainability. We're able to do all these different things. They have the mind to move forward with it. Some of the barriers are that we got gatekeepers. Folks are getting funding, and they're not passing it on to the people who are truly doing the work, such as myself. And when we complain about the unions, I was listening to an old recording of Farrakhan. All these marches on Washington were about the same things. We're demanding this, we're demanding that. When do we create it? When do we start it? Why haven't all these folks, because I started my own, I did it myself, no legal Zoom. I let an attorney look at it. Start a 501c that would create a green union for our people. And we don't have to worry about their unions when we're on a rooftop. When we educate them holistically, they can explain that, yes, why am I here? Because historically in this country, unions have shut my people out. The draft riots, all those different types of things. Unionization, so many other aspects of American society and our history have shut us out. We don't have to be part of theirs. We can build and create our own. And if we invest in the infrastructure, we get the grant funding and properly spend the grant funding, we can have our own and bring our young people into it. So when we have access, we have to be careful of those gatekeepers who have the resources, who have the connections, but don't know how to build the right infrastructure or are not willing to build the infrastructure.
Thank you, Sharonda. So I want to step over to Reverend Lassiter for a little bit. So we've had an opportunity to kind of identify a lot of different barriers, ranging from pre-employment training programs, all the way to barriers around entry into, union membership for a lot of the different trade unions that are doing a lot of these clean energy jobs and so forth. So, is there anything else that you feel like either has already been identified or hasn't been identified that is important to make sure that we can continue to look for opportunities to create partnerships to deal with some of these challenges?
Thank you, James. That's great. Let me respond this way. In the book of Exodus, there's a scripture that says, "There arose a new king that knew not Joseph. Come, let us deal swiftly with them before they figure out who they are." The barrier for us is not so much, it's all that my colleagues have already explained. They're all there. But if you want me to give you an additional one,
Go right ahead.
then the barrier is us. It's all that's been said. And so let me start with the place that I love the most, the church. So I'm not negative against the church because I love the church. So we're going to need to be proactive. Let me just start there. Because let me just let you in on a secret. This thing that we're talking about in terms of green initiatives, this is not 10 years out. This is not 20 years out. You and I are 20 years late. You know, a couple of years ago with Reverend Tuff, we came into Patterson to do an electric car show for exposure. My board of trustees said, "Why is Pastor doing this? Nobody's buying electric cars in our community." We have to begin to understand that it has to start with us. And if it can start with us and the exposure that we would bring and understand the economic gains that is lost. I'll give you another example. Some of the things we started working with a solar company, and we've done some work with a solar company, and in fact, we've started our own green company as a result of that. And we made $150,000 for our church partnering with a solar company and doing some solar work only at our church and within our neighborhood. There are opportunities for your church, for those of you who attend church, to just have a conversation with your congregation, with your spiritual leader, about what are some of the initiatives that we could take within our community, even if it's about recycling. Because let's just take recycling. Our communities were last to get recycling. It took you a long time to get you one of those little blue tubs. You know, those little blue things you rolled out? We didn't get one of those for a long time. Some of y'all looking like, what blue tub? What are you talking about? But you still ain't got one. But those are dollars that go into your city, that your city miss out on because our community don't do the recycling. So I'll just answer it and I'll get out of the way. I just think as we continue to have more exposure, more conversation, and not see this thing as something as back to the future, that we realize that, no, this is happening now. Every car dealership, Dr. John Givens, Reverend Dr. John Givens is here. If y'all in Essex County, he was one of the first Black-owned Chrysler dealerships here in New Jersey, right here, sitting here, owned a Chrysler dealership. But here's the reality now. Any car dealership you go into right now, Audi, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Chevy, anyone you pick, they have a slew of electric cars that you don't even know is an electric car, because they're not funny little cars like they used to be anymore. They're regular cars that you're driving. This is not something that is coming, it's already in the store. And we have to understand, so if there's, my colleagues are talking about if it's here, then we are talking about whether it's sales or repair or or maintenance or all that's connected to the whole of green initiatives. But I want us to start embracing it. We have to have the conversation like today. we're missing out, and then take it back, and I kind of zeroed it in at our church, because sitting in our churches on an average is a net worth of money that is there that can contribute to this, or we'll miss out on the opportunity as well again. So,
Can I just add?
Sure.
Hi, so I just want to give an example, if I may. It's a quick example, but it's an example nonetheless. When I served as mayor, I had this vision. You know that Paterson, New Jersey has the second highest falls in the United States, the Great Falls National Park. So we were the ones, my administration, that got it to be the National Falls. Now, that's one clap. But the bigger clap was this. You have a falls, which means, ergo, you have hydroelectricity. Are you following where I'm going with this? We had hydroelectricity. We also had the benefit of being just at the foothill of Garrett Mountain. So we had invested in wind energy. At least we had the conversation. My vision was, and we talked to a company called Nautilus. You ever heard of them? Nautilus, back in the day, was the very first leader in solar. Matter of fact, they're the ones who put solar arrays up at William Patterson University, raised them so cars could park underneath them, and they're earning big bucks, right? So this guy, born and bred in Paterson, New Jersey, talks to his DPW director and says, let's do this. Let's get the hydroelectric opportunity. The water's running anyway. Let's tie that to solar on every single rooftop in the city of Paterson, where no one for the next foreseeable century, give or take, would be paying an electric bill. We would be, because of the Board of Public Utilities, the only utility in the state of New Jersey owned by us, earning revenue from the hydroelectric plant and solar. Guess what the barrier was? And Pastor said it. It was my colleagues on the city council who couldn't see the vision or were too busy mad at me. mad at me, which I get it. Mad at me. Anybody want to guess what Nautilus told us was the potential of that kind of setup with the hydroelectric and solar? $180 million a year. Let me say that one more time. There's a 1, an 8, and a whole bunch of zeros. That would be gross revenue to the city. And we would have maintained what they call the SRECs. That's what you give to a solar operation. We would have kept it all. And every man and woman in our DPW would have been transitioned from picking up garbage to doing solar installation, maintenance, and repair. That's just one person's thought of how we do change. If you take a look at your cell phone, if you remember having a pager, if you got an Apple Watch, folks, you're in the environment of technology. But if we don't encourage our young people and ourselves to look at it more than just a vehicle for communication, but an investment, then we've lost again. So I just wanted to share with you that. $180 million. We would have owned it. PSC&G would have been paying us to get some of that electricity. But because barriers, because of other challenges, we missed that opportunity. And now residents in my very city are engaging PSC&G and other contractors to get solar on their rooftops. And it's going to take them 20 years, 10 to 20 years, to actually turn a profit. That's our barrier, we. And until we get past that, and I don't know how yet, but I believe conversations like this is the start. By the way, I've just launched Jeff Jones TV. Jeff Jones TV is about conversations just like this. I would at some point love to have you be a guest either in studio or remotely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. So we're going to go to Q&A, but before we do, I just wanted to, we talked a lot about barriers and challenges, but I wanted to touch on briefly about, like, how do we get past those obstacles, right? So the question I have, because I kind of want to go back to what Mayor Jones had mentioned You know, and along the lines of what Reverend Lashard also said as well, is like we're all, like to a certain degree, not all right completely, but in some cases we're our own worst enemy, right? We're our own nemesis, and we hold ourselves not just individually, but like holistically as a community, we hold ourselves back. When one or a group of us has a vision and all of us don't necessarily buy in, you know, we always got to look in the future or even in the present, looking for opportunities to try to reestablish that vision, okay? So we can take steps and move forward to try to deal with some of the challenges we've had in the past. So the question I have, if one person can kind of take the opportunity to respond to this, what does collaboration and partnerships look like moving forward within the different sectors of folks that are here? Because we have Kim here from the environmental justice community. We have Al Tariq here as well. We have like the faith-based organizations. You know, we have a whole array. Can we just talk briefly, not long before we step into Q&A, about what kind of vision do we want to establish moving forward to not only continue this conversation, but taking concrete steps in order to actually execute?
I can add, you know, we should be sick and tired of being sick and tired. On the birthday of Fannie Lou Hamer, let's kind of raise her spirit up today. Those kind of partnerships and collaborations have to start at our community level, municipal level, state level, and federal, right? This is the opportunity of a lifetime right now. We fought for 20 years as EJ activists to have enough funding come into our communities. With Justice 40 initiatives, with IRA funding, this is the time to act right now. We need what we call our workforce one-stops to really begin to do their jobs and partner with not just organizations that you've been partnering with forever, but with environmental organizations, with our churches, with some of the non-traditional relationships that you haven't had to really reach the community, so that now you're training up individuals from the most marginalized communities so that they could then have the jobs and really create just transitions. You know, when you talk about training up, because it's all about just transition. Jobs are changing. It's not, you know, just about the healthcare industry anymore. This industry, the emerging green jobs industry, we've been talking about for 20 years, and now we're 10 years in it. But the great thing about it is, even if you start today, it's emerging. You can create your own micro business. We have to also look at the business districts and create eco-green business districts with green micro jobs, right? And these are the kind of things that it takes all of us, but what it takes is the political will to do it.
So there was a time when, there was a time, I'm sorry, sister said something just struck me, and I just had to share this. So in my community, I'm sure in Newark and other places, young people would say, I don't want to be a cop. Y'all remember hearing that? They said, I don't want to be a cop. And there was a tough time recruiting young black and brown kids to be cops. Yet, that same sort of mentality we have when it comes to technology and other things. And so the question was, why would you not want to be someone who protects and serves your own? And so guess what the response from most of them was? Because all they've heard, all they've seen didn't include anything about them. So how could one transition to being law and protect and serve? Even though if something happened, the first thing you want to do is call law enforcement, but they couldn't see the $170,000 a year job. They couldn't see it. I think that's our problem. It's our benefit, but it's also our pseudo detriment, and we've got to figure out how to break through.
Thank you. Sharonda, just briefly, and then we're going to go into Q&A as soon as you finish. I want to make sure that there's an opportunity for folks to have questions, but Sharonda,
Okay, I'm going to be brief. I think one of our biggest problems is that we need to shout down the naysayers, and we have enough Divine Nine and all kinds of other stuff. Unfortunately, some people are trying too hard to be Greek before they master being black. I said it, and I'm like you, I get in trouble too, because That's the truth
You gonna
of
get in
it
trouble?
all. Sometimes I have been attacked by Bloods and Crips, and they call it Crimson and Cream, and they go by Greek names because how dare you think outside the box and try to do something and get credit for it that we're not getting credit for. Getting mad because they couldn't be in the picture. It's not about me. It's about the children. It's about the community. It's about our people. I'm a historian, and we got to do better. And if anybody's offended by it, look in the mirror, look around your communities, and do better. We all squatted up and all of this. Somebody said, why you don't squat up? Because I know I can get stuff done without waiting for a squad to come along with me. If we look around and see all these folks all gathered together with all this money, all these resources, nothing has been done. And from my experience, some of those people have been the barriers. So we got to wake up and do better if we really want to be better.
Before we go to Q&A, I'm going to impose upon, I see the brother Provost is here, impose upon just to say that we'd like to continue this conversation with the community at your university, because that's where it's going to have to start, where we just have an open conversation and bring the unions in along with the industry itself, along with the community, because if you take what we're talking about outside in the community, they kind of really don't know because they haven't been introduced to where the jobs are, what the jobs are, and what the qualifications are for the job. So we have to continue this conversation in an open forum with the unions, the industry, and the community. So at this time, James, we'll go to...
Thank you, Reverend Tuff. So we're going to open it up. How much time do we have left? 5 to 10 minutes. Any questions? I know there was quite a bit, but I wasn't sure that the mic is open in case anyone has any questions or comments.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. I don't have a question because the panel is very, very clear. I just have a statement, if that's permissible.
No, please, go ahead.
Now I know I was not going to come today, but now I know why the Spirit drove me at 3 o'clock this morning to be here. And then I thought of my Pattersonians was on the panel. Givens, get down there. I am so glad. I don't have a question because each of the individuals is very clear. Where we're going and what we need to do. I'm going to use this entire panel with my church conference. The information what this panel gave out today has to be the drum major for the future. That's right. It's already there. It's already there. And I'm going to do everything in my power to use this entire panel to get the information out to our young people. Our young people. And I think former Mayor Jeff Jones, so what I don't know, he's right of how we educate ourselves. But let me conclude with this. The same way our foreparents, if you look at the date where they build churches and build colleges with less education and less money than we have today, but they got together and build churches and colleges the way we have today. And we have to do the same thing with a panel like this and educate to be ready to grow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm sorry I missed most of the panel. I look forward to reviewing the recording. This is directed to Kim Gaddy. If you could give us the situation in the Ironbound and any updates on the, I think it was the new sewage facility or something.
PBSC. You have a question?
Yeah, is there a question? Oh, you want to?
You know what I'm
So the
talking about.
PVSC, the Ironbound is already the home of 3 toxic power plants. They want to build the 4th one. And this is where when I talk about the political will. We've had our mayor, every senator at the federal and state level, our county commissioners say, we don't want this in the Ironbound. All of them. But the governor and our county exec, Joe D., are the only 2 people that have not made the decision to support what the community wants. So we are fighting right now still to get the governor to say no to this power plant. And they want to use the fact that they say it will help us with energy, because we all know what happened with Superstorm Sandy, right? That's what they use. Hey, we got to make sure we don't have blackouts and all these things, so we have to make sure we got energy power plants to support the grid when you go offline. You don't need that when you already have one right down the street, 2 blocks from where they want to build the next one. So it's all about environmental racism. And because of the zip code we live in and the color of our skin, that they want to continue to dump on our communities and think we're not intelligent enough to understand what they're doing. And so they want to disguise it like it can fit into renewable energy. Because people get slick with it. They want to say, oh, I'm green, you know, I'm environmentalist, and they start using our language so that they could still continue to put the bad things in our community. And so the update is we are fighting still to get Joe D. and our governor, Murphy, to say no to the power plant in the Ironbound.
Thank you. And the other argument they're using is jobs, right? It will provide jobs.
The jobs?
I mean, that's the other argument that they're using for this new facility.
Oh, yeah, they say that. Yeah, they say that it creates more jobs, but the amount of jobs for Norkers will be 1 or 2, because you would need the technical expertise that the residents in Newark won't have. That's how they will justify it. And just, yeah.
I'll sell it to you cheap, right?
Well, I definitely think, Kim, that we definitely need, and thank you for that question, because we definitely need to continue to fight, you know, power plant infrastructure, particularly in environmental justice communities that have been like just overburdened, not only around the state, but around the country. Like we've borne the brunt of so much of this, and we just need to continue to fight. Next question, is there any other questions?
Good afternoon. You mentioned education as being a barrier. Are there any other barriers for our people?
So, yeah. So, speaking to Mayor, so as it relates to education, all right, so I've taught at William Patterson 15 years, political science and criminal justice. And I did it because those 2 areas of interest seem to be the 2 things that affects we as a people more than anybody. So, when we say education, I don't know that there's traditional education, your 1, 2, 3s, your ABCs. And we spend a lot of time trying to teach our kids how to survive on the streets. Everybody see what I just did on that transition? There's one thing to try to teach young people about how to navigate a classroom and to go on to become a provost, become a business person, whatever the case is. It's another thing when, not just as a community, but a system says, let me teach you how to survive on the streets. And street survival is real. I won't take anything from it. But where does it take you once you conquer that street or you walk that street? So education, in the sense of how do I plan my next career goal in kindergarten? In third grade, what do I want to do? Where are my guidance counselors helping us focus? Where are parent support in terms of helping a student get through the rigors of education? If we didn't build that correctly, we're not facilitating that at the moment, then what we're going to have is failure after failure. And some of the young people that were here today, I didn't find them to be disinterested. I found them to be wanting to know, what does this mean for me? And if we haven't spoken about it, we haven't shown it, we haven't made the connection, there's a correlation between sitting at your home, on your bus, in your living room, hours upon hours on a cell phone, and not understanding the data transfer and what you lose and what you pay for. There's something there. But if all we do is drop $1,300 on a new Apple because a new Apple comes out, and everything on it, I see a head bobbing, everything on that Apple is your whole world from now to the future, you just lost opportunity. Times the many, 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 which is why our neighborhoods don't change. So, in respect to education, I hope I answered it. A barrier to education is assuming that we send our students to classrooms and they're going to send us back doctors. It doesn't work that way. You send your child to a classroom, you go to that classroom, you talk to that teacher, you sit down and you let that teacher know you do or don't engage in what they're offering your student, and then you give them additional support during the summers rather than let them run amok as we used to do. This is how we change this. We get them erector sets, we get them those other science kinds of things, so we build that brain. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. So there was one, who had a question? Is someone else?
I had a question.
Sure.
First of all, thanks to everyone on the panel. I think the conversation was very, very interesting. I'm proposing this to our former mayor, Jeff Jones. I found your proposal about solar energy very interesting. And I'm wondering, did you ever propose it again afterwards?
So,
There's a microphone right there.
I'm sorry.
Mayor
So you're
Jones.
talking about the inclusion of the hydroelectric and all that. I believe to this day, because you remember we went through this little fracas where they took the SUM and hydroelectric plant, and this is local to everybody's community. Everybody's got a gym. It's what you know about your gym and how you're engaged in your gym, with your gym, to get the respect and the responsibility, such as the PVSC that was just spoken about. So is it too late? The hydroelectric plant is there. The houses, for the most part, homes throughout the city, still have roofs that don't have solar.
Right.
So that's two parts of the equation that still exist. It's the political will, is what my sister just said. That is what was part of my problem. There are people in powerful places higher than my mayor level was that didn't want anything like that to happen.
I guess that's what I'm asking. Can
I
you
understand that.
ignite
I'm still
the
trying to be
political
cool
will?
about things. Because it's important that their friends of the program, the same friends that keep communities black and brown in disarray, that they get opportunity. So all the components for that strategy still exist. But it's the right of way and the authority that has to be checked. And I can tell you, the current mayor could care less because he's not going to touch what belongs to somebody else. That politics. He ain't going to touch it.
But do you see it happening in the future?
I think the potential is always there. As long as the hydro, well, actually I have to say no, for this reason. I mentioned the Board of Public Utilities. If a city owns a hydroelectric plant and nobody's saying anything or doing anything about it, it has that one unique opportunity. Until such time as somebody comes in and does something to it, as has been done, then that opportunity to be the utility company of your own, it's gone. The components are still there, but it would take a whole lot of effort with the Board of Public Utilities to say, okay, listen, we want to do this. And I think that's what the politics really did to it.
I just want to add,
you.
similar to what was done in Patterson, in the city of Newark, we have the Newark watershed, and we have been talking with our administration about those opportunities because we're one, we own the reservoirs, we own that land, and we have to understand, like he said, there's certain gems in different parts of this state, but you got to understand the benefit and the value. We have so many people condition us to devalue our worth within our communities. That we don't value our leadership because they don't do the things sometimes that they're supposed to do. And so everybody is just running around not doing what's best for the people as a whole. And so one of the things I just want to say is when you ask the question about other barriers other than education, we are so accustomed to acting with each other with transaction. I do this for you, you do this for me. The whole thing about the emerging green jobs is the transformational change that it can have in communities because it has the opportunity to lift people up out of poverty and create generations of wealth. Well, community solar, as was stated, you reduce the bills that our senior citizens, they're losing homes because they can't pay utility bills. Why is that happening? So we have to understand that the transformational change that is needed, that's a barrier that our elected officials don't want to recognize and understand what is really happening in this space because the people who are outside our community that control our communities are keeping us locked out. And that's a true barrier. But we have to come together, all of us, and understand, and just like I love the theme that was on the book, we got to understand that it is about us. And so it's time that we stop allowing other people separate us because I can support you for your campaign, you're going to support me for this. No, because as a whole, that's not transformational change. And we still end up where we are because a few people benefit, but the masses don't.
One more statement before you guys go. We all talk about solar, and we're talking about hydroelectric. Ladies and gentlemen, the next transition is hydrogen. Why do you think they're buying up all these water companies? The next power source is hydrogen. Take another look. Look at who bought all your water, realize that it's not U.S.-owned companies, and look at what the new technology is. We don't pay attention.
So there are discussions, and we need to continue to have a conversation about that because there's hydrogen that is bad for us, and there's hydrogen that's good. So again, we as people of color wanting the best for our communities, we got to go in a room and agree to disagree, right? And understand what value it has, but then also understand what value it doesn't. And just like we talked about, I drive around in my electric Cadillac, and I'm appreciative that I can have it. But when I come down here, it's not like a Tesla where you can find a spot anywhere. EV connections, you can't find them. So I have to chart out when I'm driving my electric. Oh, wow, how many miles what I need to do. The everyday person is not really going to do that. And so for our car dealerships and our community members, we have to educate our folks about EV, why it's important, just like we have to do about the negatives and the pros for hydrogen. Because we don't want to put more harm into our community that we already have here. And so different people will come in with plans that sound good on paper. But when you analyze those plans, because 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when we have to get rid of these batteries for our electric vehicles, this is something we can train up people right now.
Yeah.
That's going to be a problem.
It's going to be a problem.
So we're talking about that now because we know that is the right solution to reduce the pollution in our communities. But what happens when we got to change them out?
Okay, Sharonda, and then we're going to, as soon as you're done, we're going to, because we're a little bit over, and I apologize.
So I want to deal
I'd
with...
love to continue this. But
I want to deal with the...
No, that's okay, that's okay, that's okay.
I want to deal with the EV batteries.
Wait, just before you do that, Kim, I didn't know that you was balling like that. Huh?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Say it again?
No, I was talking to Kim. I've been knowing her for a number of years. She's balling EV Cadillac.
You gotta walk the walk that you talk, I mean, and I gotta support US, so I had to go Cadillac.
So one thing I want to say about the electric vehicles and
Union
the
Made
batteries.
too, right? Yeah.
One thing we need to understand is the sourcing of the elements for those batteries. That's another nasty rabbit hole back in the motherland that we need to deal with. And we need to be talking to the young people about how to refurbish those batteries. Do we have to do that? Because I was at an EV show in southern New Jersey, and the guy had a hydrogen-powered car. He put the water in it. I don't know where he is now. I heard that he disappeared or whatever, because, you know, that's what happens to people. But I also want to add, how do we fix this? We have a problem of post-traumatic slave syndrome. Dr. Joy Leary, Joy DeGruy, whatever last name you know her as, she talked about that in her book. And that's a problem where we talk about the people who aren't trained in Newark. Why aren't they trained? We got enough universities, enough colleges in Newark alone, not just New Jersey. Why are they not educated? Why do we not have free college education for our children? Because when we talk about barriers, everything is in our way. I deal with heirs property too. I was on the phone earlier today talking with some folks about how we can do a research project, and I'm going to say it out loud here, because if somebody's going to jump on it, do it, go ahead and do it. I want to be part of it. How can we use heirs property to feed these food deserts all around the country? So we got a lot of work to do. I wish that our churches during the Bush administration would not have taken that faith-based money, because I feel like they sold their souls, because the churches could have been hubs.
Was there any money that was given?
Oh, yes, there was. Yes, there was. Well, I know somebody who was talking trash because they signed off on it. But we need to be using churches as hubs for adult daycare for senior citizens, for children's daycare, for after-school care for kids. We have facilities. All these things could be happening, but we just have to put the energy and the attitude in the right places.
Okay,
Thank
closing
you.
statements.
So thank you for, I think we're pretty much done, right, at this point? Well,
So we're going to,
Yeah,
let me
the
just
boss
say
is
this.
telling me I got, you know.
Let me help James.
Yeah.
Sir, we would like to have part 2 of this conversation at some point in time, along with a possible EV show and along with the industry itself. So I'm going to say we'll have part 2, and we will have a conversation as to how we're going to do it. And we want to thank you so much. I know I you know, but that's the way I am. So
I want to go to the hovercraft.
and I want to, because of time, we have to look at, like I say, part 2 here. But because of time, we have to turn it back over to our moderator, in which we will turn it back over to the president, and we have to go into our benediction.
Thank you, Reverend Tuff. Again, I want to thank everyone that's here, that's been listening and also interacting with us in reference to this. We need to continue this. Like, we need to continue this dialogue, discussion, what steps need to happen to move forward. I want to thank the panelists for dropping gems and knowledge on us. I got the gems from Mayor Jones. I had to throw that in there. And Reverend Tuff for pulling all of this together. Thank you so much for everything.
Hey,
all right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.